Hello, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. Amazing to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Brilliant. Charlotte, if we go a little bit back in time, like on Doc or Marty's, like what was that Back to the Future kind of a car a few years back or many decades back? Just go back in time and tell us a little bit about yourself so we can get the conversation started.
Sure. I'm Charlotte. I was born in Germany. We don't need to go all the way back to there, but I am not a technical person from the beginning. I have a business background, two business masters, studied at Stockholm School of Economics and spent some time abroad as well. And I actually started my career in the fast-moving consumer goods industry with big corporates. So I was working in marketing and strategy for Coca-Cola and the world's biggest spirits company. And the physical office was really key to me to get my work done, but also how I felt at work. And I spent, I think, 7, 8 years in the enterprises, and then I moved over and became a recruitment consultant for 2 years. And after a few hundred interviews with people, you start hearing what makes people like or leave their workplace. And then I found myself turning into a tech entrepreneur. So it's maybe not the most usual path that tech founders have, but that's my story.
Well, thank you so much. Like, what a journey. So corporate enterprise side, recruitment consultant, very different experience. And then you talk about, I like the phrase like or leave kind of a thing, like what makes people take on both ends, and then your own startup. If we like, let's take your corporate experience. What was the highs and lows of that? I've also worked in corporate space for 15 years before switching to entrepreneurship. So maybe we find some common ground there.
Gosh, how many hours do we have? No, no, I think for me, I learned a lot about processes and big brands. I had the pleasure to work with, Coca-Cola, Bailey's, Captain Morgan. Those are really strong brands. The lows for me as a person were that feeling like one puzzle piece among 16,000 people. Although I was lucky to be in quite influential positions, there was always a limitation to how high I could aim or how much I could actually decide and run with something if I wanted to try something. So I didn't always feel that my creativity and drive was, it was appreciated, but as an entrepreneur, I get a whole different arena to try out my own wings. Yeah, that's, I would say, the
very good point. Very good point. You talked about the wings. So, which means corporations. I felt similar things that while there's a lot of vision and talk about a lot of transformation, transforming a very large creature is very difficult as opposed to transforming a small instrument, which is just maybe a startup. So you could swing it around, you can turn it around, you can give it another shape, while giving a shape to a big square box, which is inside the box, is difficult. So great point over there. And tell me a little bit about the HR experience as well. Like, what was it? Was it a consulting business, or did you develop some digital platform? What was it like?
Yeah, it was a classic recruitment service firm. Okay. So I was like a headhunter, you could say, and I had various customers, everything from H&M to Coop here in Sweden, but also First Vet, like more tech. But I did not recruit developers. I don't know that sphere, but it was everything: finance, marketing, HR, sales. And since I was the independent recruitment consultant that the clients paid to find the right talent for, the talented people searching for a new job were extremely honest about why or why not they wanted to leave or go to where they wanted to go. And I had a quite negative experience in remote work while I was in the enterprises. And it came up on the one hand during these interviews that a lot of people really valued the flexibility. So people who actually liked their employer, but if they had a commute that was too long and then they had 2 kids to pick up, they said, actually, I'd rather switch employer because it doesn't fit with my life. But on the other hand, they also thought it was super important how it felt in the office, how the team glue and team, like the high fives, the laughs and all of that. And on the one hand, working from home whenever you like, but then on the other hand, the team cohesion didn't necessarily go hand in hand. So that was a lot of the foundation and basis as to why my co-founder and I, prior to the pandemic, decided to that everyone deserves to be able to interact with their co-workers as if they were co-located, also if they actually don't share the same physical office space.
Got it. I'm very curious to know, because entrepreneurship or startups are fun things, but very tough things as well. So you need to survive a startup's, how would you say, daily grind, startup grind, hence. So you need these communities. What was the primary driver for you to move into the startup side with Timico? Was it, because I meet a lot of entrepreneurs, sometimes it's a burnout, it's a complete burnout and you need to do something different, or it's boredom, maybe it becomes a routine, or is it that there was an opportunity you sent? Like, which one would you place as the main driver? Boredom, burnout, or opportunity presented itself?
None of the above.
Okay, very good. Let's discuss the fourth one.
Burnout is an interesting topic, though, because I did experience that earlier in the career, very early on, partly because I couldn't handle the remote setup. No, for me, it was a values-driven decision. It was the same decision that was driving me moving into recruitment. So when I had that burnout early on, and then I had come back and I had worked a few more years, and I realized one day that I actually made a bit of soul searching. I had a life crisis there, approaching 30. And I did some soul searching where I realized when I am 95 and I look back at my life, career is one part of it. Then you have, all the other happiness parts, like your friends, your family, or relationship to yourself. But career is an important part to me. So what will make me feel good or proud when I'm 95, and what matters to me? And I realized I don't care about title. I don't care about money. Actually, title, I'm not, don't get me wrong. I don't mind being CEO, but I'm not doing this for being CEO. Why I'm doing this is because I really realized I wanted to help people and have a positive impact, as cheesy as it sounds, on people's lives. So when I'm 95, even if no one else but me knows about it, I want to sit there in my chair thinking to myself, actually, I made a positive impact on someone's life, which was why the move into recruitment was so rewarding, because I left a job with great perks and great money, went into a profession I didn't have a clue how to do, much less paid. And the first time a candidate gave me flowers saying, thank you, you took me from one context I didn't like to a context I do like, you made me happier at work, that it felt. And that's what I'm trying to do now. It's the same mission. I'm trying to help people create work happiness, but from anywhere. And, when we then receive, it's great to get funding. Absolutely. That's a hygiene factor. But for me, how I feel inside when 94% of our users tell me that we've had a positive impact of their happiness at work, that's the reason why that can make me smile for days. So that's something I'm very, very passionate about, to try to use my career in a very egoistic way to try to help other people.
No, that's brilliant advice. And I'll just like to replay some of the very interesting points that you made for our community, because it just went into a discussion on how you pursue your careers and life, and of course career is a big part of our life. You're spending eight hours, if you add commute, 10 hours on something, so it has to be something which resonates with your soul, with your vision, with your values in some way. So great point. You said I had to feel good about it, feel proud about it at 95, and make a positive impact. So 3 things gelling in together. Great points over there. And then you linked it to Timico, where you're saying 94% users are coming back with positive impact. I'm very curious in knowing, how was your early journey like? Like, how did you find your co-founder, and like the early days of building the startup, if we can go there?
Absolutely. So we're in September 2019 then, and I have left my recruitment job to join the Antler program in Stockholm. And I literally don't even know the difference between front end and back end. And for some reason, I'm naive enough to believe I can become a tech founder, which, still today I laugh about. But I find Oleg in the Antler program, who is a software engineer, a data scientist. I come from the dinosaur world where people use Outlook and Microsoft Teams and enterprises, and he comes from the Slack, Jira, Trello world in tech companies. And we both realize, okay, there are other, like developers is a group that needs to be recruited from anywhere. So any company that has developers probably should also deserve to interact as if they shared an office. So that was the starting point. And we obviously were just the two of us. I don't know how to code. And we had this idea. So we started off by speaking to 35 different companies, hustling through our own networks, just asking about the problem area in general, remote work, what works, what doesn't, what do you use today, how do you feel? We narrowed down that within this audience that we thought would be our core audience, people were struggling their days through Slack and Zoom. And
sorry, just stopping you there. You said that you did these interviews even before you had a product.
Absolutely, before we even had a mock-up.
Okay, good message to if any early stage startups are out there. Okay, great.
Validating the problem, really. I mean, it was we had a hypothesis, but that doesn't mean much unless you validate it. So we validated it by talking to people first. Then we went back, made a mock-up in Figma of a very first virtual office layout. I can probably find it somewhere for you if you want. It's completely different today, but the system is still the same in the sense of, you have one avatar, there are different rooms, you place yourself in one room at the time, you can move around, a little bit like The Sims, but for the office. And we made a mock-up, no coding, just Figma. And then we went back to those companies that we had spoken to in the first place and said, if you got to try this for free in your team, would you do it? And a lot of people said, wow, yes. Okay. And that's when we got our first investment. And that's when we started coding. We hadn't started coding. So we then had a few test customers, 5 to be precise, that tried the so-called MVP, minimum viable product. And it was very, very basic. Took 4 months to make the MVP. We spent all our money on that. And then a global pandemic hit.
Before we go to the pandemic, okay, let's pause there, because this is very interesting journey, and this is very different from, it's very counterintuitive for traditional startups, which have made an application and they are saying that we have this finished product now, but we don't know how to sell it or who to sell it to. So that's like 70-80% of startups that I'm meeting, and then we are trying to figure out. So I'm trying to understand here, like, how did the investors take a bet? Like, was it angels, or was it like friends and family, the first round that you did from which you made the MVPs or out?
So the very first cash into the money, besides obviously starting the Abia by Oleg and myself, is the Antler money. So they had followed us during that journey, and they saw that we were open for feedback. They also knew that we had papers with letters of intent of customers wanting to try the product. And they believed in what they call, I think, team idea fit. So Oleg is extremely skilled on the software engineering side. I knew what I was talking about when it came to the problem space. Got it. Now, the round after that, which was 2.5 million SEK, that was a friends and family round. I think I had over 100 investor meetings, and I had never been fundraising before. I had no idea. And there, what people bought into was the idea and us, basically. So it was a lot of people that somehow had confidence in either Oleg or myself since previous, what they had seen. I would actually argue on the point that this is an unconventional way of doing things, that it is the right way of doing things.
Okay.
And I would also argue that I could not have done it any other way, because I actually am so untechnical. I cannot get passionate just about a product. If you give me a bike, I do not get passionate about the bike. But if you teach me the bike will save you time and take you from A to B, which is better than, that the value of something that I can buy into. So I'm not one of the, I saw it in Antler, especially like people who love coding, they can get very passionate about building, which is amazing, but I get passionate about the value. So that means that from day one, and maybe it's a good thing that I am not technical, we have always had the co-creation of the customer at heart. So we still today, just these past 2 weeks, I mean, we've been around for 3 years now. Every single week we speak to users, we evaluate their feedback, we let them decide with us on the product roadmap, we involve them, we show them mock-ups. Hey, what would you think about this feature and why? So we still today co-create our product, because that's how we believe. Then, of course, users don't always have all the answers. If you would have asked back in the days, this classic thing, like with the horse and carriage, like, what do you need to go faster? They wouldn't have said a car.
Yeah.
And so what you need to understand is their problems, and then you go back to your team with brilliant minds and say, is there a way we could solve the problem for them that they haven't thought of? Because if we had gone to customers and saying, what do you not like about Slack and Zoom? They could have said, oh, we need this feature or that feature. But very few would probably have said, why don't you make a virtual office and think a bit more like a metaverse for work? Because that's not always in people's minds. So you need to balance it, but I also believe in co-creation.
Yeah, very good points. And you mentioned a point about building, and I also believe clearly what you're saying is the right way to go, that you need to have some foundation for something to build, because you could otherwise build something without foundation. I don't know how stable that is, but that foundation is the customer, it's the core need, it's the core value that you're talking about. If those things are met, then of course the building will not collapse. But great points. Let's go into the pandemic now. Let's jump there, because I'm sorry I interrupted you, but you were on to something very, very interesting. So second interruption, pandemic, like did that accelerate, like how? Yeah, let's go there.
I guess we're coming into the actual topic now of the future work and workplaces. In that sense. The pandemic accelerated our fundraising chances, obviously, because being in the future work at that point was popular. 2, it also accelerated the market shift. But actually, I usually say like this. So if you have a scale, and you can be either fully co-located or fully remote as a company, we looked at this end of the scale prior to the pandemic. What happened was that whoosh, like a lot of people all of a sudden switched over to this fully remote mode, which in a way was very artificial, because now that the pandemic is over, finally, some people are moving back. And that wasn't only good, because it distorted a little bit. Like, we had a hypothesis about our core audience, but there was a lot of noise. All of a sudden, there was design agencies, there was marketing, or the universities, online courses, all kinds of users in our data. And of course, you could say that's a luxury problem. But since we were still, like, product market fit is also finding an audience that's long-term viable. So we're actually super happy now that it's finally over. So we can really see the audience, which turned out to be the one that we thought it would be. But it certainly accelerated. I think we did technically 4 rounds in investment rounds in I guess 14 months or something. So we raised about $4 million to date.
Okay.
And we're not profitable, so we're still living off that, existing off that money. But of course, the investor appetite got higher. At the same time, we were only 2 people when it hit. So, you know, when all of a sudden your calendar, I know this is a luxury problem, but it was not a great problem at the time for me, because all investors in the entire world just wanted to talk all day while I was head of marketing, sales, and everything else. So I didn't actually want to talk to them, but I felt like I had to. And I spent quite a lot of time until I stood up for screw you to investors. I don't want you to waste my time, because I didn't have the courage to say that in the beginning. But I realized after a while, speaking to Series B investors, when you're a 2 people startup, no matter how hot your space is, there's nothing in it for me at this point.
Got it. Very interesting points. What an interesting journey. And we can go into 2 directions right now, because I'd like to know a little bit more about Timico itself, the business model. And on the other side, I'd like to discuss again, dig deep a little bit more on the soft discussion that we are having, like the work, how that is structured. How do you say? Should we take the work side first and then go to Timico?
I guess since people sign up for the future workplaces,
okay, let's go there.
So we make sure to cover that, because I'm such a talker.
Okay, brilliant. So let's talk a little bit about, you're creating a product which is a good fit for something when pandemic happened, and then now there is some market correction happening, people like going physical, hybrid, and all that. What's your read of the market? How this is going to eventually settle in? Or is it going to be wobbly for some time?
So I think here it's about zooming in on your ideal customer profile, and sometimes you talk about T-shape. That does have this need. So I am actually, like I said, happy that not the entire masses are there yet. But there's a global market of tech scale-ups, tech startups that are hiring remote first, that have, we see it among our customers. We have users in 145 countries. So we see that there is a market for companies like our own. We are spread out in, let me see if I remember all the countries now, but on a daily basis, we work in our virtual office from Sweden, Ukraine, Poland, Ireland, Albania, and shortly Lithuania, and maybe I missed some country now. But that's how we work. And that is how many even bigger and similar companies work as well. That doesn't necessarily, if you see it, I'm actually in a physical office today. So I don't think that you need to be physically either or always. I do believe that our early adopting user group is, however, operating in a remote first way. So Daniel, our finance director, he's with me here in the physical office today, but we operate in a remote first way, if that makes sense.
No, that's very interesting, because your working space and your physical location, let's say, so where you are located and the way you are operating. So there's a mode of operation, and then there is your physical location. So your physical location can be anywhere, but you could be using tools which are something different. So it's a dichotomy. Maybe there are 3 layers to this. So very interesting point. And in building this platform or product, Timico, what do you think people's biggest struggles have been in working remotely? Because you talked about your own personal struggle. What do you think are the first 1, 2, or the biggest friction points in the category right now, which a startup like yours is addressing, or other people through a plethora of tools are trying to do?
You can view that question from 3 different angles, I would say. One, you can look at anyone who works, like employees. They can feel lonely if they're social, if they are like me, who love hugs and high fives. But other than that, if you're not so on that social extrovert side, you can still feel that when you get stuck, it's hard to get immediate help, and it's kind of, you know, bottlenecks, like that moment when you're in a real office, just say, hey, quick question. Okay. So it's those kind of moments that we enable. From a corporate perspective or a founder's perspective, there are a lot of questions around how the heck do I lead remotely? How do I set up my legal operations? How do I hire in a way? How do I give options to people? How do I find people? There's all of that space. I would say for the companies, we come in from a cultural perspective and a leadership perspective. So we keep the team together. We give you the Lego platform that you can sort of play in. And then you have the overlap, which is obviously everyone wants to be productive. Everyone wants to feel part of a team. Everyone wants to, no matter if you're a leader in a company or not. So we, sorry, what was the original question now? I forgot.
Yeah, we were trying
yeah, how do you feel? Yeah. No, sorry, I remember. Yeah, I think that those are the struggles, and trust, building trust in an organization as well. So we're helping with all those parts, but it's still, in a way, if you're, let's say, bad leader, then you're also got to be bad leader remotely.
Okay. So is your product then, like, for example, is it like something which people have and then they can manage their entire workforce, or is it a partial solution? How does it fit in the when it goes into a company? Like, do they use it for a specific part, like it's their let's say wherever remote work is needed, and then company continues with something else as well? Just trying to understand that.
If you want, I can actually show you some customer examples. I can share my screen. Okay, so how it works is basically people log in the morning when they come to work. So it doesn't really matter if you're a company like this one in Australia, and some of them are co-located, some of them are not. And it doesn't really work which time of the day if you're in various time zones, but you come to work in your own office with your logos, your colors. So this is one office from Fingerprint for Success. Here you have some other people at Trade, and they actually have offices, but they have multiple offices. So they log into their virtual office, which looks like this, much cleaner. And then, these are friends at Beatrout in India. And then how it works is you go to the table that's your team table, or you have maybe a daily stand-up. And then after that, you move around across the space during the day. And if you have a quick question, you can pull someone into the room or just pop by, and it's like a walkie-talkie functionality. And then there are, of course, some teams like this one in the US, they have a different layout. They have one room per person because they work with mentoring high school dropouts. And then these kids that they mentor also have a link that they can swing by whenever. If Sean is your mentor, then they can swing by from externally into the office. So that's essentially how it works. And what we add besides, compared to Zoom, is the spontaneity, the ad hoc conversations, and the feeling of seeing what's going on. So if let's say I'm this person and I need to speak to both of those, and I can see, they're actually not in a meeting right now, perfect, then I just jump in and talk to both of them. But here I can see they seem to be in some sort of screen sharing meeting.
Very interesting. So it's like you actually don't get that even in your physical space. If you are a large organization, you actually can't see, like, you need to go door by door and see who is in a meeting and who is not in a meeting. Maybe their calendars show that, but this kind of captures as to what, so workplace immediately becomes a living animal, I would say. Like, there are things popping in, popping out. So very interesting. But is it desktop oriented? But could you access it through mobile, or is it just?
We have an iOS app, we have an Android app, we have a desktop app, and we have a web or 3 desktop apps: Linux, Windows, and Apple. And we also have a web version. And currently, the biggest office that's live is going to be 550 people shortly, with 9 different floors.
Okay. Have you also tried some other allied markets, like, for example, imagine a large scale conference happening that is happening for 5 days. So it immediately becomes, it's not an office space, but it's like a live environment where there are a lot of stages and everything. Does your solution also go there, or is it linked to office
It's
as
a
well?
different use case, and
Mm-hmm.
we decided to stay in the virtual office space. Some of our competitors have, I wouldn't say pivoted, but have a broader like metaverse approach that they want
Mm-hmm.
people to get married there and stuff. We really want to make the office experience the best one. We want to be the best workplace, which is
Mm-hmm.
why we've invested in making it brandable, making it adjustable, making it feel like a corporate environment and not like a game, but not too corporate, so still
Mm-hmm.
putting your own touch on it. So no, to be honest, I would not recommend using Teamico for
Okay.
at this point. It might be in the future, but for events, just because there are other systems that I find are more designed for that exact purpose. But it's definitely possible. It has happened, and especially workshops, it's very popular for. But I wouldn't use it for a large fair at this
Okay,
point.
got it. I'll just pick up a question here from, hold on. Everyone, sorry, we had a chat issue with Zoom right now. I was on the side trying to multitask and solve that. Now that is solved. So I see here some question. So Mohammed, will take your question. So Charlotte, please tell us about your Antler experience and how it helped you in this journey. Yeah.
Oh, so
Uh,
much.
uh,
It did. I'm a first-time founder. I have no tech experience, and I knew that I wanted to become an entrepreneur, but I didn't know exactly within what, and I didn't know with whom. So for me, Antler helped me, A, to find my co-founder, and
okay.
two, it was a 10-week on steroids program where, it's kind of like either it flies or it was a bit fail fast. So we were 97 people that were in the same cohort in the fall of 2019 here in Stockholm. I applied. We were about 60% business people, 40% people with a tech background. I worked with another person for a while, but we never cracked that idea we were both passionate about. I found Oleg week 6 out of 10, and that's when we had these 35 hyper interviews with all these customers. And we created the mock-up week 9, and then we pitched week 10, and about 30% of those 97 people made it then onto the next phase, which meant that Antler invested $110,000. But in effect, there was also a invoice of about half that sum. So we then used that money to build the MEP. And while we were doing that, the second half of the Antler program, which was another 10 weeks or so, or a bit more, actually, three months, gave us physical office space and support in the sense of how do I set up a legal entity? What is a shareholders agreement? Those kind of things. Okay. So for me, it was helpful.
Awesome. Anders Hammerback was here like 3-4 months ago, and we have had Magnus Grimblund, who is the global CEO. He was here also a little more than a year ago. So Antler is doing great work in Nordics. I vouch for that. Just curious, did they also follow on with their initial commitment to your company, or were they in the first or second round only?
They have participated and protected their pro rata in each round.
Okay. Okay. Very good. That's great to know. Hope, Mohammed, you got your answer. In fact, we have a question even before Mohammed's question came out. This is from Anton. Okay, so this question, again, Zoom had a sync issue with the chat, so now it's showing up. So Anton has a question. What happens when you swing in? Sorry, I'm not getting it. So maybe it's related to demo.
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, so let me actually let me, I think it's the easiest thing is I really show you. We have an extremely empty office right now because we have 2 birthday kids this week, and they are, we have a
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, sorry, I'm demoing, you're on camera. So this is Daniel, and
I'm actually on the mobile.
Yeah, he's in the elevator, and I actually just hopped into his room here. So this is the Timico window. He was sitting there, and yeah, that's how it goes. Bye, Daniel. So then I hop out again, or in this case. But right now it's very calm in our office because, like I said, it's birthday week for 2. And we have a policy at Timico that when it's your birthday week, you get the Friday off. So we had some celebrations, and then in Ukraine and Poland, I guess it's also lunchtime. So this is a bad timing to demo, but yeah.
Got it. Great to see Hans. You have Hans' LinkedIn profile is there. Scott's is there. Everyone else can also share their profiles and what they're building on. Thank you, guys. I'll move to the next question. So we took Anton's question. Let's see. Tell us about Antler experience. Osa has a question. When you say Popeye, someone, do you think you could concretize a bit? So Osa has a question. Osa, I'm taking your question here. If it's not very clear, you can write it in chat if I'm not clarifying it properly. Do you think you could concretize a bit more what it can mean when you say pop by someone's desk, that you start a chat, a video chat? We just demonstrated that, but maybe you can...
Essentially, yeah. So what happens when you enter a virtual room that someone is in or someone's avatar is in, what happens is that you a floating window comes up that is similar to the Zoom window, but you don't automatically enable audio and video. It's just technically you have the possibility to speak like a walkie-talkie. And you can also, what I meant with pulling people in is basically you hover over someone else's avatar, click a plus icon, and then there will be a prompted message, so or a prompted invite. So right now, if I'm here and I am jumping in here, and you see Marcin, Nikolai, and Daniel, they are sitting here. Oh, and then there's two Daniel. Hey guys, sorry, I'm demoing.
You're live on Candid Camera. No, Startup Grind, just saying.
Sorry, that. March and Nikolai, you're live on Startup Grind. You actually, you don't actually let me share my screen, so you can at least see what's going on here. So here, I'm demoing you guys now here in a separate Zoom call. So Marcin is live in Poland. Nikolai is live in Ukraine. Marcin is our senior QA. Nikolai is fantastic developer. So essentially, let's say if we had needed also Julian in the room, he's in Albania, then we could have just clicked here on the invite icon and he could join us.
Antonella just wrote, for a non-techie, you are very techie.
Thank you. No, that's why it's so easy. The interface is so easy because I'm so untechnical. So yeah. Okay. I hope this clarifies it.
No, this is really good. Love the demo. Let's see. We have questions popping up. Just give me a minute. I need to keep up with my window on the side. Hold on. Are there any? Okay, Elias has a question. My question would be, are there any analytics built into Timico? What sort of data do you think can be relevant for teams to get out of their digital office space?
There is. We so far have not started offering any data to our customers. We are extremely keen on never being perceived as a surveillance tool. So we have had, and this is actually back to the core values of my co-founder and me. So we have had requests from some people, especially in other continents, saying, hi, I want to know who the hardest worker in my team is. Can you tell me when they log in, how many hours have they been online, and so on. And we say, we have the data, but we will not give it to you ever, because that would not be something that's aligned with our values in terms of surveying your team. However, we are open to in the future measure, for instance, in a retro, how is your team feeling? How are people doing? Do you feel that you know, you get seen and heard, or that you do you feel productive this week? Those kind of things. We are in the future planning to look closer at. However, at the moment, we do not share how many room hops or how many minutes online or so on. But that's more, yeah.
Good point. We have a question coming up for, let's see. So Kishore has a question. Adding on to that question about Antler, did you have the idea for your startup before you applied for Antler?
I actually did not, believe it or not. So I came into Antler thinking I had a list of 10 ideas. One of them was my father had a stroke and he can no longer speak, and there's not enough speech training out there. So one of my ideas was maybe we can make an app that can help him regain his speech. So I had what I had in terms of knowledge, and I knew that I wanted to help people. Like I said, I didn't really know how. But as the universe sometimes has it, I had lunch with a friend who from Stockholm School of Economics, who he had been the GM of Uber in Sweden, Alok, and he mentioned to me that he was struggling with keeping the team together and motivated when he had a team spread out across 7 countries. And they had an office here in Stockholm, one in Pakistan, one in Poland. And I was like, that actually makes a lot of sense. Like, that could be fixed. Do you mind if we take it back to Antler and work on it, the problem? And he said, please just solve it, like, please. And then we were, his company was one of the first 5 trialing the product and so on. So that's how the idea came.
Very good point. I'll just add for the community's benefit over here. I usually classify accelerators in 3 buckets. One are accelerators which are focused on ideas. So where you can have an idea, go and make something out of it. Usually there will be very early stage pre-seed accelerator, but then there are accelerators focused on building teams or coaching entrepreneurs on building an idea. That's where I think Antler is a great place, because you go and find your relevant co-founder mix. Founder Institute, our partner, is also working on that space. You could just go in there with a very vague idea or some, as Charlotte is saying, a list of 10, and then you can figure out, because the program is designed to move there. And then there are a third breed of accelerators or incubators that need some sort of traction or proof of the market. So, for example, if you go to accelerators like Sting, you would, if you apply to their Accelerate program, you need to have some sort of a proof that your product is already there in the market, making money or not making money with some intent, or you have the product at a good level of finish. Yeah, so we just branched out a little bit. But anyway, Charlotte, let's move forward. Let me see if I can take another question from here. Pull hyperlink here, happy to connect. Can you talk to, okay, can you talk to psychological safety and trust building in a virtual environment? How do you create the conditions to foster this? Elaine has that question.
Great. In our own team, if I start there, rather than talking about what we try to do to help other teams, but in our own team, we obviously have all the things you would expect from any remote team, like having one-to-ones and talking about how people are doing, and trust building. In the leadership team, you know, we have specifically focused on, actually had offsites on the 5 dysfunctions of a team, building trust, like those classical things. However, we are a firm believer in that it's not the offsites and the team building moments, it is the every single day moments. So with the virtual office, what happens is that I sit and co-work a lot with Rafal, and I know exactly how his dating life is going, and he is in Poland, and we are just working away, but we have that sort of connection through the video that I know how he is doing. I can also see, you know, one day Kim barely came out of one of the quiet rooms and I was like, are you okay? And she's like, no, I'm having a shit day at home, you know, and I could see that just based on her behavioral patterns. So we believe that trust is built through some sort of, you know, friendship or camaraderie that you get naturally if you have a physical office, that virtual teams need to invest more in. Now, on top of that, we have something called Know Me Better lunches once per month, where one person actually, and they're super popular. We host them in the kitchen in the office, and they're optional, but everyone comes always. And specific for remote teams, you need to invest that time and that energy to get to know the person behind the screen. So for these Know Me Better lunches, you show pictures as much as you want. No, it's in sort of integrity, you know, you choose what you want to show, but people tell their life stories in pictures. They show, this is where I grew up, and this is where it is on the map, and these are my parents, and as a kid I liked this, and I hated that, and then I did this. And we had actually never physically met when one of the guys left for 2 months and then he came back. He had actually never left Albania, but he said he missed the cohesion in the team so much. And we had built that trust within the team without meeting. Then when we had 4 people in Ukraine, when the war started, it was, you know, people were crying. We had a crisis room set up in the office. The guys in Poland said, physically, I'll get to the border ASAP to do whatever I can. So that trust has not been built through team building activities alone, virtually. It has been built over the course of time, every single day, by being together. So that's what we do in our team. And I think what we are trying to export is to give people that platform where you then have the possibility to build those relationships on an ongoing basis. So psychological safety is the number one factor of high-performing teams in all research. And if you don't feel psychologically safe, i.e. that you can say what you think without being judged and so on, you can have a performing team, but you won't reach high-performing status.
Got it. Åsa, I so agree with you, your comment, Charlotte, that trust is built around interacting and friendship. Thank you, Åsa, for resonating that. And love the concept of Know Me Better lunches. Yeah, I also picked on that. A very interesting thought. And thank you so much for sending the message that the chat was not working. I just caught it randomly, and thank you for resolving this. Otherwise, I would not have known, and we would have missed all of this. Let's see. We have another question from Susan. Again, a very specific startup-oriented question. How did you market Teamico? How did you find the customers part of the 35 interviews that you talked about?
So yeah, the 35 interviews were very early stage. Again, we've been very lucky. We did not do any marketing or any active efforts the first 2 years. We started spending our first money on trialing LinkedIn and Instagram. I think it was ads last December, because we got so much PR coverage. TechCrunch in Sweden, DI, Digital, Breakit. We went through, Perk site partnerships, Antler demoing. I've been lucky to be invited as a speaker at a lot of events where people hear or see about it. And then actually our users are fantastic because they share without us asking them to. They just share on LinkedIn. They're like, oh my goodness, this is revolutionized how we work and how we feel. So that's been tremendous. I would say we're still not there where we have, we know a few channels that work really well, but we still have A/B testing to do there, actually. So I think for the 135 countries that we have users in, a lot of them have found us through a friend or through seeing maybe someone else's office. And then some people Google the virtual office space, and we are actually ranked #1. We are not the ones with the most users. I saw someone else was putting something about GatherTown in the chat, and they are absolutely in the same space if you zoom in on the office occasion, and they have more users than we do. However, we appeal to somewhat different audiences, like the users who use us. They don't like the gamification approach and the feeling of that office, they say. But they might have looked into the category, and then on G2 we are the highest ranked virtual office worldwide. So some find us through comparison sites and that.
Awesome. We are at the last 1 or 2 minutes of the chat. This just flew by. I just looked at the time. What happened here?
I warned you I'm a talker. But I also love the crowd. I'm like, it's always odd to sit and talk in front of a camera. I find I love seeing people. I'm that much of an office lover. I actually love physical offices too. But I must say the chat is on fire and people are really amazing. So thank you.
But thank you so much, Charlotte. If you could give a parting thought to entrepreneurs out there based on your journey, what is important to be if you want to become a successful startup founder?
I would say 2 things that's top of mind. One is invest in a co-founder relationship. I believe co-founders are always stronger together, and you know, believe me, poor Oleg, he has, you know, sucked up a lot of moments where he's like, because we're very different. So that will be the most important relationship. People will come and go, but it's very it's important. The other thing is be honest and aware about your weaknesses, because you will need to recruit people to offset them. You will need to find people who are better than you in most areas eventually, but especially in the beginning. And don't be shy to give away equity to find better people, people who are more experts than you in a specific area, if that area is really strategically important to your business. And always listen to your gut feeling. If that means saying no to an investor because you feel the other investor is better at a lower valuation, I have never regretted. We have made a lot of those calls. At the end of the day, it comes down to your values and why you do it. Try to have passion behind it. It will help, because it's bloody awful sometimes to be an entrepreneur. Not gonna lie, a lot of times you're like, oh, why am I doing this? And that's when it really helps to go back to, though, I wanted to help people. And if you have a passion behind it, then yeah. I hope this has been useful, guys. I don't know.
Yeah, this is awesome, Charlotte. Thank you for a very open, very engaging, and a very interesting talk. And of course, the demo, we didn't even plan for that, and you brought it in.
No, that is 100% live and ad hoc. And that's the thing, like, get yourself, of course, I should also say, get yourself a Teamico office, obviously. Okay. Once you grow and you're, I don't know which phase you guys are in, but it does really help to keep the team together. So yeah.
Awesome. We would like to thank the community here as well. Susan, thank you for asking questions and for notifying me on the chat not working. Antonella, I received your SMS, but received it too late, because I always have a Zoom backup working with me on the phone as well, because I need to see if this is working, like fail safe always. Scott, thank you for being here. Mohammed, thank you for asking the question. And Hans, thank you.